everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the Salt Lunchbox. My name is Dave, and I'm the founder of Salt Sport and Life Training. We're a not-for-profit health education company that normally presents in clubs and workplaces on a range of topics related to wellbeing and mental health, leadership and culture. Welcome to the webinar, and once again, we want you to participate with questions and comments through the icons at the bottom of your screen. To ask a question, click on Q&A. To make a comment and share that comment with everybody else who's listening, click on the chat icon. Now, we know that on Monday, many of you were helping each other through this forum, and we really appreciated the people who wrote to us during the webinar on Monday. We are setting up our Facebook page for people to ask further questions and to access resources. Not everything is operational yet, but we're getting there. We also want to thank our partners, the amazing Bendigo Bank and the wonderful Eastland Shopping Centre, just down the road from me. I'm missing visiting there right now. We thank Bendigo Bank and Eastland that this webinar is free and open to everybody. Yes, it's free. Tell people it's free. Everyone keeps asking, is it free? It's free. Now, we all have our biases, and mine is sport. We are called Sport and Life Training for a reason. This opening story today comes from a few years ago when I was involved as the chaplain and welfare manager at the Eastern Rangers in the TAC Cup under-19 football competition, as it was known back then. We were playing in a practice match, and one of the opposition players had supposedly eye gouged a number of our players. They were coming off the ground with scratches on their faces. And at one stage, this player, who was alleged to have done this, came near the boundary line where our interchange bench was. And a lot of the players on the bench started yelling at him, and this incited players on the field to start pushing and shoving, and it looked like a fight was about to break out. And some of us could see what was happening, and we started yelling out, play the ball, attack the ball, not the man. And the players responded, and they started focusing hard on the ball, channeling all that anger from one source, the player, to another, the ball. And this extra aggression, this time channeled positively rather than negatively, meant that they kicked a number of quick goals, and ultimately they won the game. And today I want to talk to you about the idea of being emotionally agile. What does it mean to be emotionally agile? So emotional agility is a person's ability to experience negative thoughts and emotions in a way that doesn't drive them to act negatively, but instead encourages them to bring out the very best in themselves. So we all experience negative emotions, but it's important not to act negatively, to process them and then take positive action. Right now, many of us are facing really tough times, and we need to acknowledge and accept this. Negative emotions will be a normal part of every day. We don't want to be too simplistic and just say, well, think positively and your negative emotions will disappear. Emotional agility enables us to acknowledge the negative emotions and think and behave in ways that will benefit ourselves and others we are in community with at home or at work. Is anybody here living in a crowded, noisy house at the moment? Anyone experienced any negative emotions while living in that crowded, noisy house? If you try to ignore or suppress sad or angry feelings, this is not helpful. It's called emotional suppression. And when we do this, the feelings will get stronger. Psychologists call this amplification. If you try not to think of that giant Easter egg in the drawer while you work, the more you're going to think about that Easter egg. We often think that we're in control of unwanted emotions when we ignore them, but they can actually control us. How many of us have been carrying negative emotions about things happening at home and released disproportionate anger about something else at work or school? Or the other way around, whereby if work or school is getting under our skin and we take it out on somebody at home by getting really angry or upset about something that would otherwise be just mildly annoying. Yesterday, I was really stressed about IT. Today, I'm really stressed about IT. I'm always stressed about IT. And I won't go into the details, but everything I touched turned into a disaster. Late in the day, I felt like I was hours behind where I wanted to be. And when the TV was turned on really loudly while I was trying to work, I basically went into meltdown. Internal pain always comes out, always. And who pays the price? We do. our children, our colleagues, our communities. You know, tough emotions are part of our contract with life. So how do we deal with them? Firstly, we just need to sit in them and feel comfortable in them. Just sit in your messy world and take it in. You can even say, wow, this is fascinating that I feel so blah, so angry, so frustrated. Wow, this is intense. It's overwhelming. When we're in them, try not to say, I'm so angry, or I'm so frustrated, or I'm a living, walking mistake with an exclamation mark on my forehead. I sometimes think things like that, I must admit. When I say I am, it makes me sound as if I am the emotion. Or if you say you are, it makes it sound like you are the emotion, whereas you are you. And the emotion is a data source, a flashing light to something that we really care about. If you can, try and label the emotions accurately. Rather than saying, I am stressed, perhaps look a bit deeper. Perhaps you're feeling insecure or guilty or inadequate. Take some time to dig into where this emotion came from. Naming our emotions accurately can help us deal with them effectively. Now, another great way to get our words accurate is to journal, to write them down. When we write, we slow our thoughts down because we can't write as fast as we think. We tend to be more accurate with our words when we write. And when we find the words to explain our emotions, scientists explain that the readiness potential in our brain is activated, allowing us to take concrete steps. Note that at this point, we do actually need to take steps. Yesterday, when I was having the meltdown about the TV, I had to take steps. I took steps out the door and went for a walk. I found grass and did sit-ups and push-ups and came back an hour later. I came back a better person with a clearer head and stronger muscles. We need the courage to act. We have to do something. We can't just stay immersed in our emotions. We have to listen to them. And when we've sought to really understand where they're coming from, we need to do something about them. Some of you might be old enough to remember the great speech by Alan Jeans, the Hawthorn coach, and I think it was three-quarter time in a grand final, and he lamented to his players, just do something. But we can't just do something, or we can't just do anything. We need to take steps that are in alignment with our values. Do something smart and right for you and for the people in your community, at work, at school, the people who have to live with you. Knowing our values and acting in accordance with them is essential to well-being. We know that our behaviours are just the tip of the iceberg. They come from our values and beliefs. And when we act outside of our values and beliefs, we cause ourselves mental health issues. We'll talk more about that in a later session. Wonder if anyone remembers Dr. Phil on TV. Dr. Phil used to have three sayings. He'd say, is the action I'm taking helpful? Is it in alignment with who I want to be? Is it moving me closer to my goals? Well, right now, like you, I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling at times lonely. I'm missing my friends and family. I still say to people, we'll need to catch up, and then think, oh, we can't. I also know that many of them are struggling. And two of my strongest values are love and connection. So the steps I'm going to take is to ring or text or Zoom one family member and two friends every day. Emotional agility is the ability to sit with your emotions with curiosity, compassion, and then have the courage to take values-connected steps. So 3 takeaway points from today. Number 1, notice your thoughts and feelings. They are data. Number 2, learn to label them accurately so you get the correct data. And number 3, act on your values to reset your emotions. Well, once again, we've got Ed and Lane joining us, and we've had some questions coming through on the Q&A as I've spoken. And so we're going to get to our discussion time, which needs to involve all of you. You don't want to just hear from us. This is a community, and we'd love to hear from you all. Do you guys ever have meltdowns, or am I the only one that has meltdowns? Do you ever have them, Lane?
Go, Lane, you can answer this one.
Mate, can I maybe add a slightly different slant to it, and that is that I had a 15-year meltdown. So, you know, I think there's there's kind of moments of time where we feel overwhelmed with emotion, but also there was a 15-year period of my life where I went after the death of my brother, where it was so subtle, the shifts and changes in my emotional state, that I actually didn't recognize what it was that was happening. And it took me going back to counseling, putting my hand up and saying, I don't know what's going on for me, and I can't describe it, and I can't find the words. You know, like the great, novelist Stephen Groach says, life leaves in us a story that we don't know how to tell because no one helps us find the words. And when we don't find the words, we begin to behave in ways that we don't understand. And so for me, that meltdown was over a longer period of time, and took me going back to finding someone who could help me unpack what that was for me, and help me find the words. And then at that point in time, we're able to start to put in place some changes that were significant enough to get me back on track. So I think there's meltdowns periodically, and then there's other forms of kind of dysfunction that sometimes appear over a longer period of time.
Great. James says sorry, Ed, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, I was going to refer to James. The biggest communication problem is we don't listen to understand. We listen to reply. I think one of the big things I've learned is how there's so much less energy in listening without having to respond. So you're not listening to actually get your next word in. I think I was probably good at that. And it was so exhausting. Whereas just listening to understand someone is just critical. I have a great mentor in Kevin Gosper. Some of you may know from the Olympic movement. And I've just been talking to him this morning, and his superpower is his ability to listen and validate people. And, here's a man who's in his 80s, 84, I think he is, or maybe, and still listening, and he can just, for every person, just be able to listen to them, validate them. And I think it's a real skill, and it's just one that I think all of us will know someone who does that well. And I think we can all just try that little bit harder at this time, because one of the things is that emotions, intensity of emotion, and as Lane was saying, sometimes these emotions just come out of left field and we don't understand them. And we have to be prepared that this is not just going to happen for us, but everybody that we're dealing with. So I think there needs to be that increase in understanding that everyone is going to process this differently, and that there's so much diversity in emotion. Just because we respond to something in one way doesn't mean someone else is. And that there has to be this acceptance that we're in this really unusual time, and our tolerance for that, and perhaps our, ability to just listen without having to create solutions for people is the best thing that we can do right now.
Yeah, great.
And I think that what could be, as an extension to that, is to know when the right kind of conversation needs to occur. And it might not be right now. Oftentimes when emotions are up and emotions are, a little bit out of control, we want to jump into the communication. We want to solve the problem. We want to sort it out right then and there. But I think particularly when it comes to our teenage kids who might be, really struggling on a whole bunch of different levels at the moment, I think we just need to be patient. And sometimes the presenting issue, the thing that they want to talk about, is actually different to the reality. And we deal with the reality, but in fact, what we're not doing is dealing with the conversation that we really need to have. So being really patient, bringing some unconditional positive regard to that conversation, no judgment, no bias, and knowing when to have that discussion could be really important in getting a good outcome.
Great. Look, we've got 4 minutes to go. I do want to address 2 quick questions that came in overnight. One is from somebody who is concerned that their football league hasn't given enough information out to the club that he's a part of about where they might sit in the future financially and so on. And I put the question out to both Peter McDougall from the Northern Footy League and Troy Swainson from the Eastern Footy League last night, and they both got back to me, which I thought was just tremendous. And they did say that, that they are communicating with clubs through the presidents as much as they can, and that any club that needs to ring, that they want to respond in as much as they can. I know these guys who run these leagues, and they're very, very invested in the best coming out, but also there's such uncertainty for them, and they probably can't articulate things accurately. And I think part of our uncertainty at the moment is that we don't know how things are going to end out. And so sometimes we ask other people to tell us, well, how's this going to play out? And we can't get the answers that we really want. So we stay in that insecurity. But I'd just love to cut a break to the guys running the leagues, because I know they're doing a terrific job. And Melanie asks, what can we do for our young people? 18, 19, 20, they should be right now doing year 12, playing footy, having parties and 21sts and other things, and yet their life is on hold. And I just thought about the idea that, we don't have our kids for very long. Our kids are all grown up, and they reckon about 80% of the time you have them before the age of 18. And I'd just be thinking, wow, can we take advantage of this time? Can we play some home games, and can we do some karaoke or, daggy stuff that the kids might roll their eyes at, but actually will create great memories? And also, I reckon they're so busy in year 12. Often at the end of the year, they go into a course that they don't like, or they take a gap year to think about what the future looks like. And we've actually got this time to position ourselves and think, where do I want to be in 10 years time, and have those discussions, and what can I put in place now that I might not have otherwise in terms of research or setting things up for the sake of the future. There's other questions coming in now, and we're at 1:28. So Pete, if we go with the slides now, I'll be able to work with those without notes. So we're setting up our Facebook page, and there is already the assist list. If you can assist somebody in some way, let us know, and we'll try to connect you. We will be putting resources on there too. Bide with us as time is the issue, but we're getting there. Our partners are absolutely magnificent. This is totally free, and everybody keeps saying, is it free? Where's the, it's not going to cost money. Thank you, Bendigo Bank, Eastland, FC Business Solutions do everything in the background. They are marvelous. And the next one, Pete, that is the last one. If you're having trouble, Lifeline Beyond Blue, we do usually put up a slide in regard to them. You can contact them at any time. So we come to the end. We thank you for the participation of people. If you had problems technically, or you know of others who did, let us know so we can sort that out. On Friday, we'll be talking about the power of gratitude. And it is, it's more than just being appreciative. There's some real power around it and some practices around it. So that's on Friday. So we leave you with the thought that, remember, we will come out of this time stronger, better, and richer in the things that really matter. Thanks, everybody.